already know what time it is. It's R3's time, where we read. I'm Naila. I'm your CEO and your founder of R3, Real Eyes, Real Lives, Real Lives, where we promote knowledge of self through education and activism. And what better way to do that than to read, write, and comprehend for your own understanding? Now, if you're wondering why you're seeing me just a little bit off the track, we had to make a slight adjustment for this week for the time change. So today we're at 6 o'clock p.m., but it's still, you break it down, it equals 3. But we are reading a new book that I'll be pulling up on the PDF. The book is on its way, so I'll have it next week. But we're reading currently, it is called The Whites Kill Negroes, the Wilmington, North Carolina Coup d'etat. So we're going to bring that up, and it's by David B. McCoy. I might have had the name a little bit backwards, but again, the book is on its way. I'm going to pass it over to our hostess with the mostest while I bring up the book now. She'll let you know a little bit more if she's ready, and we will be getting into a video today so that you guys can actually get to see and hear a little bit brief summary about what we're reading, because it's going to be very extensive, so it's important that we have a great video that was provided to us. So, over to you.
Hey, it's hosted with the mostest. I got to be quick today because I'm at work and all eyes on me. However, we are reading about the Wilmington Massacre that occurred, and I really thought this book was important. It's a short book, so you guys should all tune in. This book is important
on November 10th.
The landscape that we are currently finding ourselves in, which is all the same. It might be new to us, but it's old. And, you know, the last time Trump ran, you saw that they tried to overrun the Capitol. But here's the thing. It has happened. There has been a lawfully elected government that was overthrown. And it was mostly black and whites together who worked together, and the town voted for these people in the 1800s, and the white mob, including the mayor who went on to become a congressman, I believe, killed people, which was only 9, but we can't trust the colonizers' account of how many died because black lives don't matter. So, but they came and they took them out of office by force, by death, and then reinstalled their own government. So I felt that was important. But anyway, I want you guys to know that we are here every Tuesday. Time might change, but we will not. We will be the same. So Tuesdays at 6 until further notice. But we are here for you to read. So you can get us at R3 Realize, where you would get up-to-date information regarding the book club. And at R3 Realize, we'll take you to Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and to our website. All of those platforms, you're able to like, share, and follow us for free. If you want to donate to go to some of our campaigns, like a scholarship, feeding the homeless, giving socks, food, or whatever, you can donate $1, $10, $100, $1,000, all the way up. On the website is all set to go. We are a 501c3 company, so everything you donate is tax deductible. So please consider us, but also consider reading with us and joining us and asking questions. Again, that's at R3 Realize, and I think, especially today, we are having a debate with the vice president. We saw how the other one went, Kamala. Kick butt. But we're having a debate, but I think it's important to know how the politics work in the United States, and we have to go back in time so we can know our future, so we won't be repeating ourselves. At R3 Realize. Back to you, kid.
Okay, perfect. So, like she said, we are going to be reading about the Wilmington Massacre that actually occurred in North Carolina. This occurred around the 19th century, a little bit late into the 1890s, but the 19th century. So this was a massacre of one of the bustling towns of North Carolina, one of the major cities in North Carolina. And again, like the title of the book, which let's go ahead and pull it up now, so you guys can see it. Let me make sure I'm sharing this correctly so you can hear, or you don't want the sound for you. Let's see. Yeah, we'll still share the sound. You can mute it though. So let me just pull up the book really quick since I don't have it just yet. And again, the author is David B. McCoy. But let's pull up a copy. You can also find this book on Amazon, I believe, and it's on Kindle. So, okay. And a little bit about David B. McCoy. We always like to tell you about the authors also while we're reading. So we'll read his bio here quickly. David B. McCoy earned his history teaching degree from Ashland University and his history degree from Kent State University. After 32 years of teaching, he retired to write a few short books. So that's a little bit about the author. Let's go ahead and bring up the book. That wasn't it. Oh, here it is. So the title of the book is the 1898 Wilmington, North Carolina Coup d'etat. And we're going to bring up a copy. There it goes. And so again, I was right. Okay, so whites kill Negroes and seize the city of Wilmington. And Wilmington is in North Carolina. Let me just flip it around. Can you see that as well?
Yes.
Okay. So we're just going to flip that around here so you guys can see the book. So you still have time to go ahead and purchase the book. So just a quick brief summary of the book. On November 10th, 1898, a coup d'etat took place on the United States soil. It was perpetuated by a gang of white supremacist Democrats in Wilmington, North Carolina. And I'll just pause there. Remember, at that time, during those times, it was actually reversed. Democrats were against and Republicans were for, if that wants to put it into your political consciousness of what is occurring now. It was a little bit backwards then. So that's why it's the gang of white supremacists, Democrats in Wilmington, North Carolina, who were intent on reclaiming power from the recently elected biracial fusionist government. It is considered a turning point in post-Reconstruction North Carolina politics, and the event marks an era of more severe racial segregation and effective disenfranchisement of African Americans throughout the South. Okay? I think, did I lose you there? You're still there, I think. Okay, so we're going to bring up the video that we were going to read. Thank our How Soul hostess with the Moses for providing us a good link. So this is going to give us a quick little recap of what happened November 10th. And again, it was a bustling town of black African Americans with charitable organizations, with businesses. They were thriving. The population was more, of course, blacks than whites. And at that time, the whites felt the need to take over the city. They start putting out political propaganda. If I can pull it up, I will also show you guys a little PDF. It's on my WhatsApp. It's not on my email, but a PDF of a good political cartoon. So a lot of cartoons actually came from political biases that were happening at the time, and they were using political cartoons in order to influence certain demographics, especially those that were the racists or the supremacists at the time. So there was an interesting propaganda photo of these political cartoons that had a huge boot, and it said Negroes on it, and then it had a little man and it said whites. So they were putting it out and putting it to the rest of the white population that the Negroes were going to crush us, the black African Americans were going to crush us unless you did something about it. So this just puts it in perspective of how propaganda, how political agendas are used in order to infiltrate people and convince people to go on their side, even if it's not right. So we're going to read something from the watch something, and it's called the Wilmington Massacre of 1898. Let's bring it up.
In 1898, over 2,000 armed white people descended on Wilmington City Hall and forced black and white elected officials to resign in a coup. At the time, Wilmington, North Carolina was home to a prosperous community of black business owners, doctors, lawyers, and politicians. In the days leading up to the 1898 election, white groups known as Red Shirts organized to intimidate black voters. Infuriated by the result of a biracial government, a mob of white men waged a campaign of terror against black residents. Colonel Alfred Moore Waddell, a former Confederate officer and U.S. congressman, led the mob and declared that he would choke the current of the Cape Fear River with black bodies. Armed white rioters destroyed black businesses and killed hundreds of black residents. The Daily Record, a black newspaper that had previously denounced lynchings of black people, was the first business themselves. Thousands of black citizens fled the city in the wake of the insurrection, which dramatically altered the racial demographics of the city. Colonel Waddell, who led the insurrection, was appointed Wilmington's new mayor. Racial hierarchy was codified as state policy for half a century to follow.
Okay, and that was from the Equal Justice Initiative. If you would like to go back and actually take a look at that video, it's relatively short, but it gives you an outlook on what was happening in Wilmington, North Carolina. So I'm going to see if I can bring up the PDF files. Are you able to email the PDF files?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and see if I can email it Drake right now.
Okay.
I sent it to you on a snap.
Yeah, on WhatsApp.
Okay. Give me 2 minutes.
Why can't I get out of here now?
But all eyes on me, so.
There we go. Yes, all eyes on you.
Check your email. Yeah.
Which email?
So I'm about to turn off the yours.
Okay.
Your ring. I'm taking camera on.
No worries. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're going to bring up a PDF, and we'll just go down a few slides of the PDF. It's just give us a general, again, a general outlook of what was happening during that time. I don't see it just yet, so give me a second. It's downloading. My computer has been very slow today. I'm going to have to upload everything onto my other computer or tablet. I don't see it just yet.
Well, I'll try again. Hold on.
Okay. And again, I'm pulling up the PDF because it gives us a lot of information since we're not going to be starting to read just yet. But it also is going to show us some of those political cartoons that we need to have more insight about because propaganda is a very big thing. Now we call the propaganda social media campaigns. Now we call it advertising. We call it different names now, but it was considered propaganda at those times. And using political cartoons was a very big deal. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Here it goes. Thank you very much. And who was one of the first people to actually create a political cartoon. We'll talk about that a little bit later, though. Okay, so let me go ahead and turn it around. So, again, this is the 1898 coup in Wilmington, North Carolina that we are going to be reading. I really wish I can get rid of this bar down here. I don't know how. Oh, maybe if I just move it. Let's do that. Let's see. Yeah, no, it doesn't work. I just put it in my way. Oh, maybe down here. Okay, we'll leave it. Okay, so where do I want? Let me just set this phone here. Okay. Hope you guys can see that on Instagram. So again, those are some pictures here, but we just seen it on the video. But these are some of the white men that were taking over the city, killing the Negroes, burning down their buildings, similar to the Tulsa, Oklahoma massacre as well. This is Wilmington's population. So if we see here in 1870, whites were 5,526 and blacks were 7,920. By the 1880s, the whites were increasing a bit, 6,888, and the black population was 10,462. So this just shows you how at that time the population of blacks, which is why it's considered a black town, was higher than the whites. So it wasn't necessarily any unjust things that were happening. It was that blacks were succeeding. They were thriving. They had their own businesses. They were able to survive merely alone. And the whites didn't like that. They felt that it was a threat, like how we have now, similar to politics is happening, a threat to them and their livelihood. So 1890s in Wilmington. Wilmington was a bustling, thriving port town for all levels of society and races during the last quarter of the 19th century. It was the state's largest city with a majority of the population, 2/3 being African American, like we just discussed. And that is a good picture there of Market Street. And it's looking towards west. So this is Market Street if you're from North Carolina. If you visit there, looking towards west. This was Wilmington, North Carolina. That's actually a great picture. So then the 1890s Wilmington. Wilmington was the center of African American political and economic success, and it was considered a symbol of Black hope, largely due to Black agencies within the Black community. They had a strong religious community, supported charitable organizations, and promoted educational improvements for African Americans. Similar to what R3, Real Eyes, Real Lives, Realize, what we're doing here as a nonprofit organization, we promote knowledge of self through education and activism so that we can provide more educational improvements for African Americans and they can have knowledge of themselves, their past, their history, and their present and their future. So again, we'll continue reading. During the 1890s in Wilmington, African Americans from a wide range of backgrounds were able to manage their own businesses and buy homes throughout the city. African American entrepreneurs owned barbershops, restaurants, tailor shops, and drugstores. The city boasted numerous Black professionals such as attorneys, and African Americans held positions as firemen and policemen. I want to add a note there. When you hear people say support Black-owned businesses, it's not because we want to separate ourselves from the normal demographic of business owners, but because there has been such a need for Black-owned businesses due to situations and issues like 1890s in Wilmington, like the Tulsa, Oklahoma massacre, like Seneca Village in New York. Every time an African American here in the United States is thriving, there's always a demographic of whites, demographic of supremacists, whatever group you want to put them in, that are trying to tear down and do tear down. They bomb our cities, they burn down our businesses, and make it seem like we're not able to thrive solely alone. So keep that in mind. So it also says in greater numbers than in many other North Carolina towns, Wilmington's African Americans participated in politics and held municipal and political positions. The Black male literacy rate was higher than that of whites. Right now, we're having an issue with literacy rates, which is why we're the Real Book Club. We promote knowledge of self again through education and activism because reading is fundamental. It was once illegal for us to read, and even with the political situation now, with a lot of those East Coast states banning books, getting rid of certain books in schools, it's very, very important that not only Black males, but also Black women, Black children, and the Black community overall, the African diaspora, continue to educate ourselves and improve our literacy rates. I also want to note that this is another one of my grandfather's books. He was very, very well versed in literacy rates for the Black male population. If you look into any of his works or Google his name, he fought for literacy rates and how in schools they're always having lower literacy rates. Kids are getting kicked out that are Black males, higher suspension rates, which take away the ability to learn if you're not in the classroom. And that's something I've heard him say repeatedly over and over again. So I will try to get some of those statistics and go on these websites that he just told me I couldn't navigate because he was a professional and he was a student of this stuff, a student of history. But I would try to navigate that for my grandpa, just to put that out there as well, since he's with me in spirit and with me and my mom. So he was very big on Black male literacy rates, and that's very important to R3 Realize as well, including the African diaspora. Let's see, continue on. Did you want to add anything there? Okay, so just jump in.
No, I'm good.
Okay, so then in the 1890s politics, so we had two different parties like we have now, but remember they were slightly reversed. So the Democratic Party of the 1800s, and this is a really good slide that you found for us, so thank you. So in the 1800s, originally the party supported slaveholding for the Democratic Party. They developed into a coalition of wealthy working class and rural white members, and controlled North Carolina state and local governments from 1876 to 1894. The coalition weakened. I'm just going to mute you. Sorry. The coalition weakened after the 1880s, and we'll talk about that later. So then the Republican Party in the 1800s over here was originally emerged as the anti-slavery party in the mid-1850s, though it was not officially organized in North Carolina until 1867. So it formulated in the 1850s, but it wasn't recognized in North Carolina until 1867. And then the platform consisted of free enterprise, racial toleration, and political equality for African Americans. And if you think about that today, it has definitely changed and switched sides. But again, that's politics, right? So let's continue on. And then we also had at that time the Populist Party. that was known as the People's Party. It was founded by working class and rural whites and predominantly farmers who left the Democratic Party. So they left the racism that was being happening for the Democratic Party and supporting slaveholding, and they created this populist party. But keep in mind that a lot of the farmers at that time possibly also owned slaves. So we have to think about the aspect of what their benefit was on creating a separate party at that time as well. But we'll talk about that later. So then in the 1890 politics, the fusion movement happened. And so as an economic depression in the late 1800s, it deepened. White populists joined forces with black Republicans, forming the Fusion Coalition. That's what we're just talking about, of the benefits of creating a separate party and then fusing again with the black Republicans. This occurred from 1894 to 1896. And by fusing their voters, they hoped to defeat the Democrats and regain control of local and statewide politics. Fusionists championed local self-government, free public education, and electoral forms that would give black men the same voting rights as whites. Okay? And that just to keep in mind that although we got our voting rights, black men were able to vote before black women, and that's always something that's not necessarily said. But remember that black men were able to vote before black women, so there was still some type of racial and racial segregation that was happening and discrimination, especially for those that were black women. And then also fusion was successful, and the party won every North Carolina statewide office in the 1894 and 1896 elections. Okay, so this is one of the governors at the time, Governor Daniel Russell. It says a Republican, and it says that Daniel Russell was elected to serve as the first Republican governor of North Carolina since the Reconstruction. Okay, so we're just going to go down a little bit more, and I just want to show you guys. We'll read some of this PowerPoint, next week as well. We'll have it up. So this just talks about it. We don't want too much of the book before we read it. So here's some of the propaganda, like I've already was telling you guys, how social media, marketing, advertising, these are modern terms for propaganda at the time. This was the social media. This was the word of mouth. This was the propaganda that was happening, but it was used for intimidation. And this was them preparing for the 1898 election as well. So if you look at this, it says, remember the six with a skull and bones in the middle. And we'll talk about that because, you know, R3 is a metaphysical organization. Also, we talk about all things and all aspects for the African diaspora, so we can put two and two together and understand. So you see, it's a finger, a hand pointing at the skull and bones. There is a gun aimed at it, and it says, remember the six. The six. And it's funny because we actually started today at 6 o'clock. So there you go right there. It was meant to be, right? So I'll just read to you this little passage that was an ad placed out for everyone to read. And it says, the degenerate sons of the white race who controlled the Republican machine in this country, or those whose positions made them influential and put in Negro rule on the whites, will suffer the penalty of their responsibility for any disturbance consequent on the determination of the white men of this country to carry the election at any cost. And it says, remember the six at the bottom again. So if you were imagine at that time this being displayed, whether you're black or you're white, it's either an intimidation factor or if it's coercion, trying to convince you to support their cause if you are white, right? And then even look at this photo here. If you can see, it says the Fusionists. Remember, the Fusionists partnered up with the Republicans. The black African Americans at those time was the Republicans, and they partnered up in order to get self-governing states and things like that. But these are the whites here. That will be the Democratic Party, and if you see it, it's the devil against a white man trying to put his vote in for the ballot box. And then it says here on his ticket, for Negro rule. So they wanted to rule over Negroes. They wanted to have authority, power, and control over Negroes, over the African Americans. I'm using the terminology of those times, but over the African Americans and the African diasporas at that time, in order to basically take it back and keep it into slavery. That's what it was. And if you see at the bottom, it says, don't be tempted by the devil. And that was for the Fusionist Party. So for both sides. Here's the famous photo I was actually talking about, which the big old boot, which is a very funny thing that they used this boot because I forget who it is. I'm going to think of it in a minute. Malcolm X said basically, they tell us to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps to a man who has no shoes. So I think it's very funny that this picture was used as a propaganda at that time. And you see it says right here, the Negro, as if we had all of this wealth and authority. We didn't even barely have shoes, let alone buttons on our bootstraps. So you see this big old boot, and it has the white man laid out on the ground like he needs help, he needs saving. And it's funny, too, because in slavery, they always basically taught us that the white man is our savior. And that's where religion comes into play as well. But then on this propaganda, they're trying to convince us otherwise, as if they needed saving. So I thought this one is a very good photo for you to see political cartoons at that time. And if you see, it just says here, a serious question is, how long will this last? That's what their question was. How long will the white man be pressed down by the boot of the Negro, of the African Americans? You want to add something? Oh, okay.
No, I'm listening.
Oh, okay.
I just had to stop. So when it's time for us to end, I got off the train.
Oh, no worries. We're actually going to end here. And then I just wanted to show you guys a picture of the red shirts that was mentioned also in the video. This is a picture of the red shirts, and it's ironic that they're called the Democratic Party, which is now blue, and the Republican Party, which is now red. But the red shirts were the people that were spreading intimidation at that time. So that was very interesting to learn about that. But these are the red shirts from Laurinburg, North Carolina. And briefly about them, the red shirts were a group of Democratic Party members whose goal was to intimidate black citizens from voting in the 1898 elections. So we'll just stop there. Because like I said, we'll go through some more of these slides. It gives us a very brief outlook of what we're going to be reading in the book in order to put a lot of the information together. But remember, political cartoons, political propaganda was used to intimidate those of the black African diaspora, but the Negro population at that time. You have to understand that what's going on to play with the politics now is the same thing of race rhetoric that is happening, or the sex of a candidate that's happening in order to suppress one other person or to sway a voter into their direction. So politics has always been this thing in America, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. And again, just remember, the Democrats in the 1800s were for slavery, and the Republicans were a group of the black African Americans against it, of course. Then you have the Fusionist Party that fused together the other parties of whites that left the Democratic Party, and they joined in with the Republican Party, which were the black African Americans, in order to create more community type of political party, self-governing, creating businesses, having rights for the black African Americans. But we'll talk a little bit more about it. Again, we are reading The Whites Kill Negroes and Seize Wilmington, North Carolina by David B. McCoy. This book will be an excellent read for us to gain more knowledge of self and what's happening, especially in the politics. But what I'm going to do is pass it back over to our hostess with the mostest. She's going to let you know a little bit more, and we will see you next week. I'll let you guys know the time, but we'll see you next week. R3, to you.
Hey, it's how was told the hostess with the mostest. I am at work right now. Don't care, because that's where I am. But anyway, we are reading what she just said, Wilmington Massacre. And it's very important that we keep up to date on past politics so we won't repeat it. Because at any time, if you overthrow, you see they overthrew the government and installed themselves and considered themselves a legal entity of the government at that point. So you think about the Supreme Court justices have been installed and the rules and rights that they're slowly chipping away at us. We can walk our way back into chains. We got to be careful. Anyway, at R3 Real Lives, we're here every Tuesday. The time will change, but we will never. We might change our clothes, but we will not change our name at R3 Real Lives. We get you to Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and the YouTube, where you can like, share, and follow for free. You can also donate at the R3 Real Lives website. At R3 Real Lives will get you to the website where you can donate, and donate to any of our campaigns. We have a scholarship. We feed the homeless or the unhoused, and we try to make an impact on our community. And you can help us. You can also help us by joining the book club on our live and asking questions, reading the book with us, challenging us in our thought process. We appreciate all because we are forever learning. You're a student forever. Life, like my father would say, you're always a student. You can never learn enough. You can never know enough. So at R3 Real Life, every Tuesday, we're at 6 today. this next week, but if you go on the website and register, we will be updating you if our times do change. We will see you later. Please. Back to you, kid.
Great. All right. Well, I'm Naila. I'm your CEO and your founder of R3, Real Eyes, Real Lives. Real Lives, where we promote knowledge of self through education and activism. And what better way to do that than to read? And we will see you next week. Peace. Or we say 3. Oh, let me get your 3. 3. All right. Peace.